Hello and welcome to the Liz Experiment YouTube channel. This is the channel where I share field notes from my journey towards architecting my best life. I'm recording to you as if you saw last week's video, status video, I had the same background because I'm still in Lisbon, Portugal. And I'm here this week. My friends arrived on Sunday. I'm recording to you on Friday. And I've spent the week working and doing all my normal sort of life things and helping my friend start to research spaces and activities for her upcoming retreat in October. So it's been quite the week because my schedule was thrown for a loop in a very good way, but that was super challenging. If any of you know me, you're like probably, well, you all know me. Unless you're sharing this with a friend who could benefit from it, and then you're a real friend. So what did I learn this week? There were a couple themes to my week. When I was home, I think I said before my friends came in on Sunday, I just kind of was chilling out on Saturday night, and I started to watch the Brene Brown Netflix special. And in it, she repeated a quote that I had heard her use before. I think it's from Teddy Roosevelt. But the basis of it is it ends with the idea of choosing courage over comfort. And so I talked about that quote in one of my old blog posts when I was kind of just considering, I think I was in Yuma, Arizona at the time and kind of freaking out about being in Yuma. And so I'll provide a link to that in the discussion area, notes, show notes, whatever the F it's called. Point of the story is I really learned about that idea and started to think about it further. The other thing I learned about, which I'll also provide a link to, was the idea of emotional content. And this is something from the Bruce Lee podcast. Eric, if you're watching, thanks again for recommending it. But they talk about emotional content and how Bruce Lee's philosophy really, really honed in on not thinking as much as feeling. Or I mean, I have to learn more about the philosophy, but this particular episode was about feeling. And you know, in a moment when you go to an amazing inspirational museum and you see this painting, instead of saying, oh, what am I feeling right now, just feeling and then acting through the feeling that's coming through you. It's a very challenging thing because it's very nuanced, but especially in Western culture, we go to our heads first and we start to analyze. And what I learned this week was a different way to kind of move through the world, through intense feeling and acting on feeling. And the third thing I learned this week was, and this is also a very good thing, even though it was a tough lesson to learn, I learned a lot about the needs around my work environment. And this came from my friend Carol and I kind of just trying out different co-working spaces and traveling at different times and starting work at different times of day, and how all of that kind of started to play out. And I learned that given my time in New York, I spent a lot of time in cafes and all of these sorts of like different public spaces working when I was living in Manhattan. And so I did learn that I don't get too distracted when I work. So I don't need necessarily a certain type of quiet place or anything like that. I just need really good internet. And I need to be in a place for several hours. You know, it's not do an hour here, do an hour there, that kind of thing. So I started to learn more and more about those specific needs. And then what I worked on this week, I worked on really letting go through that last what I learned this week. I thought about more around letting go. And I mentioned this, I think, in the last week or the week before's video. This need to, do I work too much? Do I need to balance my work in my life? What do I need to do there? Because I was so frustrated this week when I couldn't just sit and work. I wanted to just get my work done. And it wasn't just moving around that was the issue. It was like all of these obstacles kept coming up with Wi-Fi, and it's just one of those weeks. Digital nomads that are watching, or location independent people, or nomadtopia people, you feel me. I just had one of those weeks. And then I realized it was the VPN I was using most of the time. What do you know? But the point is that those emotions, and I was having these intense reactions to it and this intensive anxiety around not getting my work done. What I worked on was just accepting that that's just who I am. Until I can accept that that is just who I am, none of it would change. And maybe it doesn't need to change. That's okay. So that was a big theme for this week. It's the other thing that I worked on was, I guess that it's not another thing, is as all of that was happening and I was kind of spiraling into my anxiety, I just really thought about the emotional content bit and just started going there. And not trying to make excuses about why am I being emotional right now? Why am I being anxious right now? I just am. And you know what? That's not necessarily a good thing, and maybe I should change that, but I'm not going to change it making excuses and trying to deny it. So I really worked on accepting and being in that emotional state. Related, obviously, to the Bruce Lee podcast that I saw this week or listened to. You don't see a podcast, or do you? The other thing I worked on this week was choosing courage, and this was a big theme for me this week. Choosing courage over comfort. This was as small as having the courage to speak up about, I don't like working at this space, or or asking people, how do you say that in Portuguese, and not remembering it, but still asking anyway. I'm getting this flash to last night. We were coming home from the co-working space, and I was trying to get home early enough to kind of stop at the grocery store before I had a meeting with a client out in Utah. It was like 6:00 at night, I think the meeting started. And there was this tremendous traffic, which made our 10-minute or 5 to 10 minute ride a 30 to 40 minute ride. And I just kind of chose to be courageous in that I stopped worrying, because I hold on to worry and anxiety as comfort. To me, it's, even though it's so uncomfortable, it's not, or I wouldn't do it. And I was rewarded with that, in that the little market right across from the front door was open. I was able to pick up a few things for dinner with the time that I had for the meeting, and everything was fine. This might be TMI, but I actually tried to use that thing in the bathroom that's, not the toilet, but the bidet. But I know I'm saying a last name of a friend back home. So I don't know what is it. But you know what I'm saying. I adventured and tried that out. It's all right. But I also just tried to make myself uncomfortable, choosing to be courageous. Like, yeah, I would like to sit down and do this thing that I always do that makes me feel comfortable, but instead, let me try this. And that has been a huge help this week. It's been a huge help in kind of opening me up to the experiences. Oh, I tried this, like, I was in the grocery store, like little market across the street last night, and I picked up this, I don't know, thing in a package. It looked like it was sausage, but I didn't know what it was, and I started cooking it. I had no idea how to cook it. But then when my Airbnb host came home, she kind of was like, oh, it's really good that you're trying that. You overcooked it, but this is what it is. And she told me the history of it, and she told me what it was. And then I realized it was actually something, even though I realized I tasted it and it was delicious anyway, I was like, oh, this is something I actually would have bought if I knew what it was. But I chose to be courageous, and I learned something new, and I grew and I expanded my knowledge about that. And I know what I'm mentioning are little moments, but I think for me anyway, those little moments of courage are more important sometimes than the big ones. Like, yeah, I'm out on the road. Yeah, I'm traveling Europe alone. That is really courageous. But if I'm not trying to use the language, or if I'm not making myself uncomfortable in the little moments, the substantial growth is not going to happen. It's just going to be slower and slower and slower. And finally, the last thing I worked on was grieving my grief for Kofi. I think about him every single day. I want to reach out to him on Google Chat and talk to him and tell him about all the funny shit that's happening to me. I miss him. I miss him tremendously in my life. And I worked on being in that grief. I also worked on sharing it and talking about it and just getting feedback on it. um, in this way, just kind of mentioning it when I was feeling sad, that kind of stuff. Um, but I also worked on sitting in it and just knowing that I can't sit in it and let it run my life, but also knowing that I have to be with it in those moments that it comes and show respect to it and then move forward through the grief. At the very least, to show respect for him, but also in order to grow and to be with it and to understand it. And I'm never going to find, and one of my friends that I was talking to about this, who's also experienced a ton of grief in their life, basically said, you're never going to find a meaning in something so meaningless as your friend dying. But you find the meaning that works for you, and you use that to propel you forward in life. And maybe that's what you were meant to learn, or maybe that's whatever the thing is. But that's how you continue on through it. It will get better with time. It will never go away. But you create and you attach the meaning that works for you. So that was this past week in Lisbon. I have the day off today. I'm going to just start exploring the city. It's like late in the morning, but whatevs. I don't yet know what I'm going to do, but I hope to. My friend Carol had a portable mic, and so I hope to use that to record some on-scene, on-location videos for you guys, and just kind of record what I'm seeing and doing. Next week, I think I'll be back in Lisbon, but I'll be in a totally different neighborhood. If you guys heard me talk about anything today that you can relate to, please let me know in the comments. If there are things you would like me to talk about or have questions about how I'm living my lifestyle or what I'm doing on the road or anything like that, please let me know. And if you want to stay up to date with videos, be sure to hit the subscribe button and you'll get them every week in your email or YouTube thing or whatever, however it works. Until next time, until next week, thanks for watching, and I don't know, live out loud, I guess, right? Right.